He's one of history's most hated men. Millions want him eliminated.
Possibly the most evil man in the world.
A few will take action to end his reign of terror.
This plan has an excellent chance of killing him.
From his early grab for power to the final days of the Third Reich, new research reveals there are at least 42 plots to kill Adolf Hitler.
This was ultimately a suicide mission.
Who were these would-be assassins?
He must have had nerves of steel.
What were their methods? And why did they all ultimately fail? We'll retrace the steps.
Hitler is standing right about here.
Test the weapons. And uncover surprising new information about these bold attempts to change the course of history. November 1923, 5 years after the end of the First World War, Germany is suffering the aftermath of a humiliating defeat. As a crippling war debt sparks debilitating hyperinflation, a mere loaf of bread could cost 400 billion marks.
German people need a sense of pride. They've been humiliated for many, many years, and this is a very proud people. They want someone to stand up and establish Germany as a nation among nations.
In a packed Munich beer hall, a gunshot is fired into the air. The stunned crowd of local leaders looks on as a young Adolf Hitler declares the National Revolution has begun.
The 1923 beer hall putsch is a really lame and ill-considered attempt to run a coup d'etat.
The following morning, Hitler leads a march of 2,000 armed Nazis through the streets of Munich. As they near the Bavarian War Ministry, Hitler and his men face a hail of gunfire. This time, it's the Munich police, not a would-be assassin firing the shots. When the dust settles, 16 Nazi revolutionaries are dead. Hitler is arrested. His failed grab for power will come to be known as the Beer Hall Putsch, or Revolt of 1923.
Hitler had taken a bullet and died in 1923 at the Beer Hall Putsch. He probably would be assigned to the dustbin of history.
In 1924, after less than a year in prison, Hitler emerges, a man with a mission.
He viewed himself as being Germany's savior, preserved by Providence to do great things for Germany.
In the early 1930s, 42-year-old Adolf Hitler is running for president of Germany. He preaches racial and ideological intolerance, railing against capitalists, communists, and non-Aryans. He describes Jews as a disease that must be eliminated. Many have good reason to hate Hitler. For some, assassination is the only option. Many of the early assassins may have been courageous, but their unsophisticated approach gives them a low probability of success. Plot number 1 takes place in March 1932. Hitler is crisscrossing the country, appearing before huge crowds. He's vulnerable to attack from virtually anyone. A group of anonymous gunmen fire on his train outside of Munich. Hitler is unharmed, but this is just the beginning. In June, he narrowly escapes attempt number 2, an armed ambush near Stralsund. 1 month later, his head is grazed during attempt number 3, an attack on his car in Nuremberg. In January 1933, Hitler is named Chancellor of Germany. As his power increases, so do the plots to kill him. Over the next 5 years, he's targeted at least 16 times. One plot involves handing Hitler a bouquet of flowers rigged to squirt poison in his face. Another would-be assassin plans to give Hitler a fountain pen packed with explosives.
glanzvolle Tag der Aufrichtung einer neuen großen Volksgemeinschaft.
Yet Hitler's popularity gives him a false sense of safety. More than 5 years into his regime, the Führer's security detail is still relatively unsophisticated. But that will change. Assassination attempt number 20 will show Hitler he's becoming the target of a more determined class of would-be killers. Munich, November 9th, 1938. Hitler is marching in an annual parade commemorating the failed 1923 Nazi uprising.
This was one of the biggest events of the Nazi calendar, and thousands of people would come to line the streets and watch the parade.
Standing on the sidelines, a lone gunman waits as his target comes into view. 22-year-old Maurice Beauvau might seem like an unlikely assassin. He's enrolled in a French seminary when he makes it his mission to kill Hitler.
Adolf Hitler is easily identified as an antichrist in some people's minds, and Beauvau seems to be motivated primarily out of religious motives.
Beauvau buys a semi-automatic Schmeisser 6.35 and practices his marksmanship in the woods outside Munich. Then he stalks his target.
The great problem that any assassin had in trying to target Hitler was the question of access. The parade is the best opportunity that he has.
The morning of the parade, Beauvau finds a spot in the front row of a grandstand near the Holy Ghost Church.
Every person along the route should have been searched at least once, maybe twice, before they were allowed in along that route.
The parade will proceed west on Tall Street toward the Marienplatz. As the marchers pass Beauvau's position, he plans to shoot Hitler from the sidelines. But what are the chances Beauvau can hit his target? Roger Morehouse is the author of the book Killing Hitler, which details the various assassination attempts. Historian John Gresham is an expert in weapons and VIP security.
Okay, John, this is exactly the spot where the parade would have come through those arches and marched down this street.
Morehouse and Gresham are retracing the path of Hitler's 1938 parade to help them determine the viability of Beauvau's plan.
Oh, hey, John, this is our spot here. This is the Holy Ghost Church. Beauvau would have been standing right about here.
First, they estimate the distance between Beauvau and Hitler as the parade passes Beauvau's position.
Roger, about what distance do you make that out to be?
Well, I would guess, John, I think Hitler would have been round about here, which is probably about 25 feet.
Small pistols like the Schmeisser are designed for use at close range. Can Beauvau's gun reliably hit a target 25 feet away?
This is the Schmeisser 6.35 automatic pistol.
Gun expert Greg Martin runs one of the world's premier antique firearms auction firms.
I could see why Beauvau picked this gun. You could almost hold it in the palm of your hand and nobody could see it.
Martin designs a test to determine the Schmeisser's accuracy at 25 feet.
I want to be able to pull this gun out, fire it, not have to stop and aim it, but be able to point it in the general direction and be relatively certain that I'm going to hit.
The shots are a little off target, but the error is consistent.
This gun fires high and to the left, so you compensate by taking it and aiming low and to the right.
Once Martin learns to compensate, the shots are dead on.
This could hit definitely a human target at 25 feet.
But even if Beauvau can hit his target, does the 6.35 caliber bullet have the power to kill? Martin uses a cube of ballistic gel to simulate a human torso. This shirt, t-shirt, and wool coat simulate the layers of clothing Hitler wore for the parade.
like Clyde Barrow's shirt. Got a few good holes in here. This tells me that Adolf Hitler would have taken some good hits.
Even from a distance of 25 feet, it looks like Bavaux's Schmeisser had enough penetrating power to do the job.
All the way through. So that means that the bullet went through the jacket, the shirt, the t-shirt, the body, and came out the back.
As the marchers draw near the grandstand, Bavaux clutches his Schmeisser. If he pulls the trigger, Hitler could be a dead man.
There would have been a sort of a hush in the crowd, and everyone would have been pointing out Hitler, gasping with anticipation.
But the awestruck crowd foils Bavaux's plan. As Hitler comes into range, a forest of right arms raise to salute the Führer. Bavaux's view is blocked, and the moment is lost. As Bavaux heads back to France, he's caught riding the train without a ticket. The Gestapo finds his gun, along with a map of Munich.
He probably collapsed like a house of cards within a few hours. He simply didn't have the sort of gumption to take torture, and the Gestapo were certainly capable of all sorts of kinds of torture.
Bavaux is convicted of attempted murder of a government official. His punishment is death by guillotine. Hitler considers the failed attempt to be a very close call. His survival, he claims, is evidence of divine intervention.
He viewed himself as being Germany's savior, preserved by Providence to do great things for Germany.
Bavaux's plot exposes Hitler's vulnerability, walking these narrow crowd-lined streets in such a widely publicized event. The annual Munich parade is discontinued after 1938. As Hitler's aggression escalates, the attempts to kill him grow more focused. By March 1939, Hitler has seized control of Austria. German troops occupy Czechoslovakia under the threat of war.
The vast majority of the German population viewed this positively. Hitler had restored historic German land, but there were very few who viewed this as a grim foreshadowing of what was to come.
One of those few is 36-year-old German carpenter Georg Elsa. He fears the Nazis are marching the country into a disastrous war. Hitler, he decides, must be stopped.
He's essentially a loner. He doesn't feel that he has to share his secrets with anybody else. And that stands him in very good stead with his plotting.
Assassination attempt number 21 will take place at the same annual commemoration Maurice Bavaux tried to disrupt 1 year earlier. Elsa's plan is to kill Hitler as he delivers his speech to a packed hall of prominent Nazis. His weapon is a homemade time bomb.
He's a trained mechanic. He's a cabinet maker. He has an understanding of how things work. So when the time comes for him to sit down and formulate a plot to kill Hitler, he does it with a thoroughness that is amazing. It's almost as if he was born to be the perfect assassin.
Hitler's speech is to take place in the Bürgerbraukeller, a massive Munich beer hall. Elsa plans to install his bomb in a pillar behind the podium where Hitler will speak.
Elsa's entire plot carried profound risk. Anyone attempting to assassinate Hitler is effectively undertaking a suicide mission.
Throughout the fall of 1939, Elsa sneaks into the beer hall after closing time. Night after night, he works alone in the dark, carving out a space in the pillar for his bomb.
He must have had nerves of steel. He was an extremely brave man.
Each morning before the bar opens, Elsa carefully replaces the wood paneling on the pillar, sweeps up his mess, and exits through a back door. Elsa plans to be in Switzerland when his bomb goes off, so he needs a special timer that will run for several days. He builds an elaborate device consisting of 2 clock mechanisms, allowing up to 144 hours before detonating the bomb. He encloses the timer in a cork-lined box to muffle the telltale ticking.
The timer he built is a wonder. Even today, it would be considered a work of art.
Even if the timer works perfectly, is Elsa's bomb powerful enough to kill Hitler? Looking for answers, author Roger Morehouse and weapons expert John Gresham head to Berlin, home of the German National Archives. Here, among the stacks of Nazi-era government files, they find documents that shed new light on Elsa's attempt to kill Hitler.
What we've got here is the Gestapo file from the interrogation of Elsa. We know that he arrived in the city with 50 kilograms of various types of explosives.
If he has 50 kilograms of explosives, he's going to use every bit of it to create the maximum of damage and death in that hall.
After more than 2 months of painstaking work, Elsa finally installs his bomb in the beer hall pillar. On the evening of November 5th, 1939, he sets the timer to go off 3 nights later at 9:20 p.m., right in the middle of Hitler's speech. As his time bomb ticks away the hours, Elsa heads for Switzerland. November 8th, 1939. Hitler takes the podium before a crowd of 3,000 Nazi supporters. In the pillar behind this Nazi flag, Elsa's time bomb is ticking. But Hitler has made a last-minute schedule change, starting his speech at 8 p.m. instead of 9. Elsa's bomb is set to go off at 9:20, a full hour and 20 minutes away. Now the question is, will Hitler's speech last long enough?
Hitler's speech was almost entirely about the historical shortcomings of the British and how inept they were and untalented they were.
Hitler talks for about an hour. He then immediately leaves for the train station. 13 minutes later, Elsa's bomb goes off exactly as planned. As the pillar shatters, the overhead balcony and hall ceiling come crashing down. The podium and front row tables are splintered to matchwood. Out of the roughly 100 who remained in the hall, there are more than 60 injuries and 8 fatalities.
If Hitler had given his usual 3-hour harangue, he almost certainly would have been killed.
Just minutes after the beer hall explosion, Elsa is apprehended at the Swiss border. German border guards find his fence cutters, sketches of the bomb, and a postcard of the beer hall.
He ultimately confesses, and at that point I suspect began to be quite proud of what he had almost achieved.
Elsa is imprisoned at Dachau, where he's eventually executed.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Elsa's near miss is a wake-up call for Hitler's security regime. Better surveillance and precautionary arrests are enacted in advance of public events, and authorities tighten controls on purchases of explosives. But lone assassins like Elsa aren't the only threats facing the Führer. A plan to blow Hitler's plane out of the sky is brewing among his own officers. September 1st, 1939. Germany invades Poland. The Nazi blitzkrieg sweeps across the Polish frontier. Warsaw falls in a matter of weeks.
They are put under a crushing regime. Poland is dismembered. Anyone who even gives a dirty look to a German is subject to instant execution. Millions of people have died.
The Polish underground has good reason to strike back. In early October, they form the 22nd plot to kill Adolf Hitler. The Poles plant 500 kilograms of TNT under a main intersection in advance of Hitler's tour of occupied Warsaw. But as the Führer's car passes, the explosives inexplicably fail to go off. More than 2.5 years later, a daring attack on Hitler's train also fails.
Hitler knows that Poland is a very dangerous place for him. There are many people who don't like him there.
After conquering Poland, Hitler launches a massive invasion of the Soviet Union. The German onslaught decimates Soviet defenses, taking whole armies prisoner. This naked aggression fuels Stalin's desire to eliminate his arch-nemesis. In all, the Soviets form at least 3 separate plots to kill Hitler. Plot number 26 involves a seductive German film actress named Olga Cheshkova. When rumors circulate that Hitler and Cheshkova are romantically involved, Soviet secret police pressure the Russian-born actress to introduce Hitler to a pair of undercover assassins.
This is one of the more ridiculous plans of assassinating Hitler. Hitler really doesn't have a very serious relationship with Olga Cheshkova. It's not going to work.
Like the Poles and Soviets, the British have their own plan called Operation Foxley. Recently declassified documents reveal that British snipers were to kill the Führer at his home in the Alps. The British eventually abandoned the operation, fearing a backlash.
It's very possible within Germany itself that Hitler would have become a martyr.
As the war progresses, Hitler's increasing security reduces his exposure to most would-be assassins. Public appearances are tightly controlled, and Hitler has little personal contact outside his circle of trusted Nazis and military advisors. In fact, by the spring of 1943, the most serious threat to Hitler's life may come from officers under his own command. Colonel Henning von Tresckow is a respected German officer with a distinguished military career.
He'd been a gifted young soldier at the end of the First World War and had won the Iron Cross.
Stationed at Army Group Center headquarters near the Eastern Front, Colonel Tresckow is well aware of the ongoing Nazi genocide.
Entire villages would be destroyed. Literally thousands upon thousands of Jews were simply being taken out and shot into pits. And this was something that disturbed him greatly.
Convinced that Hitler must be stopped, Tresckow builds a coalition of like-minded officers.
So many of the conspirators believe in the German army, believe that it's an honorable army, and that it's being perverted by Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, particularly in these horrible atrocities that are occurring on the Eastern Front.
In March of 1943, Hitler announces plans to visit the Smolensk army base, where Tresckow is stationed. Tresckow seizes the opportunity, launching the 28th attempt to kill Hitler. His plan is to use a time bomb to blow Hitler's plane out of the sky.
This attempt is very well thought out and has a good chance of success. Of course, the bomb needn't be that big. All it needs to do is bring the plane down.
With the help of his aide, Lieutenant Fabian von Schlabrendorf, Tresckow builds an improvised bomb. He uses 4 captured clam mines, British sabotage devices originally designed to stick onto train tracks or bridges. Each clam is loaded with plastic explosives. The fuse is a number 10 British time pencil, a 5-inch long copper tube containing a percussion cap, a spring-loaded striker, and a glass vial filled with copper chloride. The device is activated by squeezing the tube and breaking the glass vial. The released copper chloride eats through a steel wire, which eventually breaks, allowing the spring-loaded striker to hit the percussion cap. Tresckow has a half-hour fuse.
If it goes off, it's going to tear that airplane to pieces and kill everybody on board.
The biggest challenge will be getting the bomb on board Hitler's personal plane, but Tresckow has a plan. He disguises his time bomb as a gift box of brandy. On the morning of March 13th, 1943, Hitler arrives at the army base in Smolensk.
Tresckow is in a profoundly nervous state.
After meeting with the Führer, Tresco asks Colonel Brandt, a member of Hitler's entourage, if he'd be willing to deliver a small gift to a friend at high command.
They should be searching every single thing that goes aboard or comes off that airplane.
Later that afternoon, Schlabrendorf activates the 30-minute fuse and joins Colonel Tresco at the airfield. As Brandt prepares to board Hitler's plane, Schlabrendorf hands him the brandy gift box. Moments later, Hitler's plane disappears in the clouds.
Tresco must have believed at that point that Hitler was as good as dead.
Less than 2 hours after leaving Smolensk, Hitler's plane lands without incident. Tresco sends Schlabrendorf to recover the brandy bomb. Careful examination reveals that the fuse simply failed to fire.
The baggage compartment was probably unpressurized and unheated, so it was going to be cold, and cold affects these time pencils rather badly.
Colonel Tresco and the German resistance remain committed to killing Hitler. 1 week after the brandy bomb failure, they'll get another chance.
It was very important for Tresco that failure with the brandy bomb attempt didn't dissuade him. If anything, it spurred him on.
Tresco learns that Hitler will be visiting an exhibit of captured Soviet weaponry at the Zeughaus Armory in Berlin. One of Tresco's co-conspirators, Colonel Rudolf von Gersdorf, will be Hitler's tour guide.
It's a desperate effort. They don't have very many opportunities, and when they see one, they have to put it together.
Gersdorf takes the clam mines from Tresco's failed brandy bomb and arms them with a 10-minute time pencil fuse. The hard part will be getting the bomb within killing distance of Hitler. Author Roger Morehouse and security expert John Grisham head to the Zeughaus in Berlin. They want to get a first-hand look at the challenges of Gersdorf's mission.
We've got the two circular stairways.
The dramatic staircases have been removed.
This is where Hitler gave it.
Otherwise, the building is basically unchanged since 1943.
This is the right end of the room. You'd have an enormous balcony at the top there and two swooping, dramatic staircases coming down either side.
Risers coming out about here.
Yeah.
And right here, that would be the lectern. That's the spot where Hitler gave the speech, right here.
Right here, inside Hitler's podium, is where Gersdorf initially considers planting the bomb.
And he ran up against a problem there in that the security measures from after Elsa's attack in 1939 had been so revamped that he knew that this area would be searched, and he couldn't safely get it into the lectern.
On top of which, this is a huge space, and with only 8 ounces of C2 explosive in the charge, if it wasn't right up against Hitler, it was going to be dissipated. This just wasn't a practical way to go and assassinate Hitler.
Colonel Gersdorf decides he has but one option. He'll have to hide the bomb in his own coat pocket and make sure he's standing next to Hitler when it detonates. If the plan works, he'll be history's first known suicide bomber.
The suicide bomb is a surprisingly good idea because it's so unthinkable. There is not a tradition of suicidal sacrifice as yet in the Axis German mentality. So the idea that someone would give his life to go and take out Hitler is, frankly, beyond their imagination.
Shortly after 1 p.m., Hitler addresses the crowd of senior officers and Nazi VIPs. When the speech is over, Gersdorf greets the Führer and reaches in his pocket to activate the bomb.
One can only imagine what must have been going through his mind. But he would have felt, I think, content that he was carrying out a mission that was, to his mind, was freeing Germany of a tyrant.
Gersdorf stays as close as possible to the Führer as he guides him through the exhibit. The tour is scheduled to last for half an hour. But Hitler seems distracted. After just a few minutes, he disappears out a side door.
Hitler might have sensed Gersdorf's anxiety, might have sensed his nervousness. It'd be hard to act normal when you know you're going to blow up in 10 minutes.
After Hitler escapes, Gersdorf quickly slips away to deactivate the bomb. Although the suicide and brandy bomb plots fail, the German resistance will keep trying. In fact, by the spring of 1944, Hitler's own officers launch at least 4 plots to shoot him, 6 to blow him up, and 1 to arrange a so-called fatal accident. June 6, 1944, D-Day. An Allied force of over 150,000 lands on the beaches at Normandy, establishing a firm foothold in Western Europe. By fall, Paris is liberated, and the Allies push on toward Germany. Meanwhile, Nazi death camps like Auschwitz are operating at near capacity. For those hoping to stop Hitler, desperation is setting in.
They realize that there's going to be hell to pay. Members of the resistance are desperate to try to preserve Germany and hope that perhaps by assassinating Adolf Hitler, they might be able to cut a deal, particularly with the Western Allies.
In the summer of 1944, Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg is a brilliant young officer with a distinguished war record. He's an early supporter of the Nazi movement, but news of the regime's brutality convinces him that Hitler must be eliminated.
He's someone who is appalled by the Holocaust that was going on the Eastern Front.
Stauffenberg was nearly killed in North Africa 1 year earlier. He lost an eye, his right hand, and 2 left fingers, but gained a clear sense of purpose.
Stauffenberg has a very serious injury in North Africa in 1943, from which he wasn't expected to survive, and he comes back, invalided back to Berlin. And it's quite possible that there's an aspect where he says to himself that now is the time that he has to do something. He's had this very near squeak with fate, and now is the time that he has to act.
Stauffenberg is charged with managing Operation Valkyrie, the German army's plan for maintaining order and securing key sites in the event of domestic unrest. It's a position Stauffenberg can easily turn to his advantage, using Valkyrie to stabilize the country after a successful coup.
It's the perfect way to take over Germany after an assassination. They had the men in place, they have the plans in place. It's sort of a mole inside an established plan.
Stauffenberg will have the perfect opportunity to take action. His job requires that he regularly attend meetings with the Führer.
Because Stauffenberg has access to Hitler, his plot really should be the one that succeeds in killing him.
July 20th, 1944. Stauffenberg is summoned to a conference at the Wolf's Lair, Hitler's remote military headquarters in East Prussia. This is where Stauffenberg will make the 41st attempt to kill Hitler. Wolf's Lair is a 2-square-mile compound divided into 3 nested security zones, each with its own checkpoints and razor wire fences. The outer perimeter is ringed with minefields, machine gun nests, and anti-aircraft guns. The tightly controlled inner circle, where Hitler resides, holds an assortment of outbuildings and massive concrete bunkers. The walls of Hitler's personal bunker are more than 16.5 feet thick. Stauffenberg manages to smuggle 2 1-kilogram slabs of plastic explosives into the compound.
The security at the Wolf's Lair is astounding. Now, it's focused on several specific threats: air attack, airborne assaults, raids. As good as and as layered as the security is, it is not proof against someone attacking from inside Hitler's inner circle.
Dass ich oder irgendjemand
Moments before his meeting with Hitler, Stauffenberg and his aide arm the first brick of explosives and hide it in a briefcase. Before they're able to fuse the second bomb, there's a knock on the door. Stauffenberg is ordered to the briefing room immediately. He grabs the briefcase and heads out the door, leaving behind the second brick of explosives.
The time pencils that von Stauffenberg used technically were 30-minute devices. The problem is it was a hot day, it was a humid day, and these are things that tend to speed that up. He was walking around with a live time bomb that could go off any time.
When Stauffenberg enters the room, the meeting is already underway. He takes a position near Hitler and places the briefcase on the floor. Moments later, he excuses himself from the room. As the meeting continues, a 1-kilogram bomb sits a mere 3 feet from the Fuhrer. Only seconds remain on the fuse.
Und wir werden sie sehen.
As the smoke clears, Stauffenberg is headed to Berlin to help manage the transition of government power.
He had watched the explosion from a short distance away, and he was of the conviction that no one in the room could have survived.
The blast blows out windows, part of a wall, and buckles the floor. The conference table is shattered, and the plaster ceiling comes crashing down. Of the 20-plus men in the room, 4 are fatally wounded, but Hitler himself emerges with relatively minor injuries.
Subsequently, he begins to see his survival as further evidence of the intervention of Providence. As he explains to his doctor, he says, "I am immortal. I am invulnerable."
If it's not fate, then why is Hitler able to survive this powerful explosion? Roger Morehouse and John Gresham head to what's now northeast Poland to get a first-hand look at the wolf's lair.
It's very, very well made.
They believe these concrete ruins hold clues that can help them better understand why Stauffenberg's bomb failed to kill Hitler.
There's Hitler's bunker. Let's go in.
Just amazing.
This is all that remains of the once impenetrable compound after the retreating German army dynamites these buildings back in 1945.
Over 60 years, this stuff has not rusted.
This picture of Hitler's conference building was taken on July 20th, 1944, right after Stauffenberg's explosion. This is what the demolished building looks like today.
It's a big building, this one.
And substantial. This is not the light building that's described in some accounts.
So this is the roof, right? Because it's tarred.
The collapsed concrete roof now sits at ground level. Hitler's briefing room is buried in the rubble below.
It's interesting, what we've got down here, John, is the...
Our experts believe they've located ground zero for Stauffenberg's bomb, directly below where they're standing.
We're about the point where it looks like the explosion would have taken place.
Yeah.
Hitler is standing right about here, within a foot either way of about here.
6 feet below.
And right here is where he's standing when it goes off.
Morehouse and Gresham survey the size and construction of the building.
That's it. What have we got there? 5'8". 5'8". Okay. Very importantly, it's a very solid structure, but the windows is what allowed that blast to escape. That's good.
They use the data gathered on site, original photos, and information from the Gestapo investigation file to build an accurate computer model of the conference room. This is how the officers are positioned around the room. Hitler is leaning over the table, reading a map. Morehouse believes the bomb is on the outside of this table leg. Computer simulation shows that the table may have shielded Hitler from the lethal blast zone.
He was shielded by the solid table leg. So consequently, that table acted as a form of body armor to him and gave him surprisingly good protection, both for his upper torso as well as his legs.
But what would have happened if Stauffenberg used a bigger bomb? He did bring a second slab of explosives to the Wolf's lair.
In effect, Stauffenberg's bomb was only half the bomb it should have been.
Yeah, and there's this question of the second charge. He could have put it into the bag, and it would have roughly doubled the size of the blast.
Would double the blast be enough to kill Hitler? John Gresham returns to the U.S. to recreate the Wolf's Lair explosion.
18 feet due south.
Only this time, the test will include Stauffenberg's second explosive charge. Gresham outlines the exact dimensions of the Wolf's Lair conference room.
That corner right there, right about where that rock is. Okay, gently down.
This 7-foot-long table will simulate the end of the conference table where Hitler was standing when the bomb went off.
Yeah, that's good right there.
These two fiberglass mannequins represent the officers standing between Hitler and the bomb. This specially designed anatomical mannequin is the stand-in for Hitler. The dummy can be filled with a viscous fluid, in this case melted ice cream, to add body weight and simulate blood. Paramedic Jim Morrissey will examine the Hitler mannequin after the blast to determine if its injuries are fatal.
Based on the density of the plastic, as well as the liquid on the inside, I think it'll give a pretty good representation of what would happen to a human based on this explosion.
Former FBI bomb technician Frank Doyle will rebuild Stauffenberg's bomb using 32 ounces of C4 plastic explosives.
So this is exactly what he had on the 20th of July that he detonated in that room.
Correct.
But what happens if Stauffenberg includes the second slab of explosives? Doyle puts another 32-ounce charge of C4 in the briefcase.
Now this would double the size of this bomb, which means it's going to be a really big bomb.
It's going to be a huge explosion.
The bomb is hooked up to an electronic fuse and placed in position on the outside of the table leg. 6 remotely operated cameras are set up to record every detail of the explosion. With everything set to go, the team heads for cover some 150 yards from the blast zone.
Cameras rolling.
Fire in the hole!
Fire.
Think we used enough explosive there, Butch?
The blast shatters the heavy table. Hitler is showered with splinters of wooden shrapnel and thrown more than 15 feet.
Yep, that extra added poundage helped out.
The post-blast scene resembles a war zone. Hitler appears to be a casualty.
The concussive effect would have disintegrated his lungs.
He's lost a lot of internal fluids. He's leaking.
Yeah, let me down roll him over, see what we have on the backside. Wow, look at this.
Yeah, he's leaking all over the place and out of that upper femur there.
This is clearly a fatal injury. Just the legs alone would rip through them. His upper torso took significant, multiple lethal blows, so there was no way this is a survivable injury.
The test shows that with the second charge added, Stauffenberg's bomb would be capable of killing Hitler. But even if Stauffenberg had succeeded, would the course of history be changed?
It's so late in the war that the war still had to really run its course at that point.
By July of 1944, Germany was too far down the path of destruction.
You have Hitler most likely being succeeded by a combination of Himmler, Bormann, and Goebbels, which is a fairly awful prospect.
As for Stauffenberg, when his bomb fails to kill Hitler, the coup unravels, and the conspirators are arrested. Before midnight, he's facing a firing squad in Berlin. By spring 1945, the war is closing in on the Third Reich. As Allied forces push towards Berlin, Hitler orders that German infrastructure be demolished, leaving only scorched earth for the advancing enemy. Armaments Minister Albert Speer, a trusted member of Hitler's elite inner circle, is appalled by the destructive policy. he turns against the Führer and plans the 42nd and final known plot. Speer conspires to feed poison gas into Hitler's Berlin bunker through an outside air vent, but eventually abandons his plan. His loyalty to Hitler is too great. Berlin, April 30th, 1945. As Soviet artillery pounds the Reich Chancellery, Hitler huddles in his bunker, 25 feet below the ground. After his wife Eva Braun takes a lethal dose of cyanide, Hitler himself does what at least 42 would-be assassins have failed to do. He puts his Walther 7.65 caliber pistol to his head and pulls the trigger.
He knows it's collapsing around him. He doesn't want to be an object of scorn. He doesn't want to be paraded through the streets. He would rather commit suicide and be done with it than have to go through a trial.
After the fall of the Third Reich, the world must come to grips with the depth and breadth of the Nazi brutality. Although their attempts to kill Hitler failed, the courage and conviction of the would-be assassins will serve as a source of pride to post-war Germans and show the world that even within Germany's own army, some refuse to sacrifice their conscience to Hitler's depravity.
In the darkest days of Third Reich, there were still people who were willing to stand up and, at tremendous personal risk, act on the noblest of instincts.